Hey YouTube, what is up? How is everybody doing today? I hope your days are going good and your lives are going even better. For that, we are going to be jumping into something different than what we usually do. We generally do music, we do deathcore, death metal. The reason why that kind of music especially speaks to me is because it has topics of religion and politics and history and so much built into which people miss when they listen to growled lyrics. All they hear is noise, which is kind of fucked up to the music that I love. But I kind of wanted to go back to the reason why reaction videos began, so that I could kind of just like, here look, reaction videos began because of watching a video and kind of giving your opinion on what was happening. If you don't agree, if you agree, just to kind of emphasize points so you compare and contrast in a sense, you know what I mean. So I've watched a lot of Jordan Peterson's videos, but I've never watched that one that made him famous. You know, the one with the protest at the university campus or whatever the fuck it was. I've never actually watched that video. I've seen clips, like probably like 30-second minute clips from there on a different kind of things when he was talking about free speech and everything else, but I've never seen the whole thing. So this video is about 13 minutes long. I'm going to try and not break this down to as much as I probably could, because I could probably sit here for like 3 hours and just talk, but I'm not going to. We're going to basically sit back, enjoy it. I'll pause a little bit, not all the time. We'll just kind of go over the main talking points. Like, as if things change topic, then we'll see how it all goes and exactly how he handles this situation that he's about to go through. So let us jump into it.
I want to go talk to Peterson. Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest? The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
That's a fucking fire line. No, obviously we don't like Nazis. That's kind of like, you can't control what people do, though, sadly.
Then why
were they here? Well, how can I answer
are their views in alignment with yours? At some point you have to realize.
That's a foolish question. Look, if you want to know what my views are...
I've watched all of your videos, yes.
Including...
Yes, I have.
Yes. Then why would you ask such a question?
Because this is my interpretation of your videos.
Apparently,
Why is she like sniggering almost, you know, and when she's talking to him, she's like, I've watched all of you, this is my interpretation of your videos. It's like, it's proper disrespectful. Like, if you're talking to somebody who's highly educated, who's a university professor, and you're talking to him like he's a piece of shit, like, how the fuck are you meant to kind of like take anything they're saying seriously? But I love that he doesn't lose his cool. He's just like chillaxing and it's been like, you know what, I'm gonna reason with this person, even though he doesn't have to. Like, it's still interesting, isn't it? But still, let's keep going.
All of the people who arranged the protest against you watched all of your videos.
It's like, do you want to disavow? 150 videos on YouTube.
No, your lectures, which sparked the debate.
Okay. Do you want to disavow the support? Could you let me talk to her for a moment?
Don't call me that, please.
So, I have 150 lectures on YouTube.
No, I know, like, I mean, in terms of, like, the don't call me that, like, she never specifically told him any pronouns, so that's really not his fault, like, in case you're wondering about that. So, like, if you're talking to somebody, if you go up to somebody and shout at them, how do you feel about this Nazi presence at your lectures, or, like, these white supremacists, and then they say, oh, now can you stop, like, talking and let me talk to this person, say, or to her, or to him, or, you know, to whoever. If you are shouting at somebody and being like rude as fuck, and then you're like, please use my proper pronouns, it's like, isn't it defeating the purpose of like trying, because there's disrespect from the very beginning of the video, you know what I mean? So, and obviously Jordan had no way of knowing that would ever happen, so, or like that, of what the pronouns would ever be for this person, so I don't know, but still, man, let's keep going.
There's 500 hours of my views.
Do you really think that you're worth all of that time?
So look, I will answer your question, okay? I've studied Nazism for a very long time. It's been 4 decades, and I understand it very well. And I can tell you that there's some awful people lurking in the corners, and they're ready to come out. And if the radical left keeps pushing the way
that
it's
sounds
pushing,
very much like a
they're
threat.
going to come.
That sounds very much like a threat.
How does that sound like a threat? It's the truth, like, if he's been studying Nazism for 40 years, like, for 4 decades, right? Like, if he's been studying it for that long, if he's, like, been going through it for that long, and obviously the Nazism is a huge fucking thing in England, in America, There's like neo-Nazis in America, there's fucking the National Front and all that bullshit in fucking England. That was all proper true, like, next level, next wave Nazism, where people believed all that complete bullshit. And they're lurking, they're right at the corners. If you've never seen them, it's because you've never looked, you know what I mean? But still.
Sounds very much like a threat. Would you like to disavow the physical violence? Trans people were physically assaulted at this rally in your name. Would you like to disavow that violence?
Yes.
So you wish that didn't happen, and you want to, and I'm going to post this online, that you would like people to not to be more accommodating of trans people and people of color at your events in future.
I would like there to be no violence.
I'm a person of color, and I felt very accommodating. I felt like my voice. Thank you very much.
I'm also former Muslim, and I feel like.
Man, that's awesome. I'm glad people are, like, you know, rallying a bit, like, you know what? We don't feel offended, but, like, people of colour, technically, so why the fuck would we just, like, not care? Like, if they're talking with them or standing with them, if they're students of his or whatever, and they feel fine because Jordan Peterson can't do shit about what people are doing at rallies, you know what I mean? It's not his place. Like, obviously he doesn't want people attacking and people, and trans people, and people of colour, and people of different ethnicities getting fucking attacked and whatever. Nobody does. Nobody wants that shit. At least not people with a rational, sensible, or sensibility, should I say, but still, man, let's keep going.
I'm a person of color. There are many Muslims.
You wanted to disavow. You wanted to disavow, and this is the disavowal. I am not an advocate of violence. I'm speaking out the way I'm speaking out because I think this is a route to no violence. And violence is lurking. And you can say that that sounds like a threat.
There was no violence at our protest, though. There was violence at your protest. So what does that say about our views?
It's not my protest. You know, asking me continually freighted questions isn't very helpful if you actually want to have a dialogue. You have no idea if I'm your enemy. You have no idea about me.
You won't use my pronouns, so I'm pretty sure you're my enemy, yes.
Yeah, well, I know you think that, but I don't believe that using your pronouns is going to do you any good in the long run. I think it'll do quite the contrary.
What the?
Is that your medical opinion?
What, is that your medical opinion? Like, you are aware that non-binary people are valid.
No, he's not a doctor. He's a psychologist. Like, I've watched every video that you've made on YouTube, all of your lectures. Like, he's a psychologist. He's not a doctor. Like, he's not a physician, if you know what I mean. He's like, he may have a PhD, but that doesn't make him a doctor. Like, you know, in what they mean, because they mean, is that your medical? Is that your medical things? Like, no, I'm not that type of a doctor. I'm a psychologist. Like, in terms of not using somebody's pronouns, like, from what I've gathered from previous videos I've watched of him, it's more of a free speech issue than it is a pronoun issue, if you know what I mean. It's more of a, if you try to force me to use it, then it's kind of taking away from things I can say. Like, it's saying, like, say, if somebody makes a video saying they hate America, or they hate a certain place, or something like that, like, they have the free speech to say that. Like, they have to accept the consequences of what they said, obviously, but that's literally one of those things, and stuff like that. But I think at this point, he's trying very hard to stay calm, and he's trying to kind of be rational, but you can see that he's kind of getting angry and angry and angry as time goes on, but still. I don't know, like, I think just the way she came up to him was so disrespectful that expecting you to use somebody's pronouns when you don't even really know them properly, or they just come up to you, it's like really hard or disrespectful to begin with, but still.
Is that your medical opinion?
What, is that your medical opinion? Like, you are aware that non-binary people are valid in the American Psychological Association.
Is that your opinion?
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's about non-binary pronouns.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
I'm saying that that's what I'm about.
Were you there when I spoke?
I've been here for this whole thing.
Okay, well, I don't know that. It's a genuine question. Look, I think that's what's happening is that we're pushing over a line we shouldn't cross. The newest legislation is requiring people to use.
But you are aware that that's being put in place so that.
Yeah, exactly. So they're thinking it's about non-binary people when it's not. It's about changing free speech. And if you fuck with free speech, we're all fucked, basically, because the moment you change free speech, everything crumbles. Like, everything we've built for the last, 200, 300, 400 years is fucking crumbles. Like, that's how fucking, the Crusades happened. That's what they start. They start free speech. If you went against the word of the Bible, you were destroyed. Like, back to those times. Like, you don't want that. That is ridiculous. That is something you should never, ever have to go through in terms of a thing. Like, I know, like, because it was publicized as to help and be friendly towards trans people, but changing free speech is a whole other issue. You know what I mean? Forcing speech is something that's never been done and should never be done. I'm not sure whether this bill passed, as I wasn't really keeping up with it. Like, obviously I've never seen this video, but it should never, ever be done, because free speech is important, probably the most important part, like, law we've ever passed in Western civilization, at least. So let's keep going.
We can't get fired. We need to be written into the Canada human rights legislation, or we can be fired for our gender identity. Well, then why did you make a fucking video about it? I've been denied housing as a trans person. These rights would protect me.
Denied housing?
I've been denied housing.
From the state or for the open market? So have you been denied housing, like, from the government?
It's illegal either way if we had human rights.
From the government?
not
Or have you tried to get a house like everybody else and they said, no, you're weird, you can't work? No, if the state has done that, that's a problem.
They said,
but if someone doesn't want to live with you, that's their right.
They said, no, you're trans.
Really not sure how you
so no, if I had human rights, that wouldn't have fucking happened.
Yeah,
as
you're
I'm
weird.
concerned-
I don't want to live with schizophrenic
As far as
people.
I'm
I don't want to live with
concerned,
people who are
That guy's going a bit crazy. To be fair with you, like, he's not really making much sense. Like, I understand what he's saying, but no, there's laws against that. Like, you know, against housing market's open regardless. Like, there was a thing in England very, very recently where there was a gay couple and they wanted to buy a house, right? And because those people were devout Christians, they said, no, I don't believe with your gay relationship, so I don't want to sell you my house. And of course, that's against the law. You can't do that. It's an open market. That's how it has to be. So if you're discriminating somebody because of their sexual orientation, like openly against their sexual orientation, then you're breaking the law, and that's literally how it happens. So in that sense, like, she's completely right. She can't be denied housing because of trans rights, at least because of her transgender state, like, you know, because of her being transgender, or because of that person being transgender, or anybody being creed, colour, sexuality, anything like that. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean. But still, that guy is getting a bit pissed off, and he's losing a little bit of his sense, unfortunately. But still, let's keep going.
That's a terrible thing. It's too bad that that's happened.
So you don't want us to have protections in the human rights bill that will allow me to have employment, me to have housing security, allow me to have medical care. That's what this is about. It's not about infringing on your rights or making you learn a new fucking pronoun.
I don't think that's what it's about. What evidence do you have that attempting to transform the way that people use pronouns is going to produce a positive effect on
Because
society?
are you aware that there is a trans boy who killed himself in psychiatric care recently because he was continuously being misgendered by his care workers?
And that is my precise problem.
And there have been multiple recorded instances of trans people killing themselves because they are not being integrated into society. We are not looking for special treatment. We are looking to be able to integrate ourselves into society. And if you refuse to refer to us by our pronouns, which is not allowed to ask, singular they pronouns go all the way back to Shakespeare. It's not a new thing. If you refuse to let us integrate ourselves into society, you create alienation that results in suicide. We are in a suicide epidemic right now. What are you contributing to this as a psychologist?
Man, you know, you're almost impossible to talk to. You're so full of rhetoric that it's impossible to listen to you.
The feeling
I would
is
be more
mutual.
than happy to listen to you.
Yeah,
I
really.
said I was devoid of rhetoric. And I don't really think I am a rhetorician. Just so you know that. And you know, like, it's very hard to listen to you. I mean, it's very hard to attend to you.
Because it's
I mean, for me personally, like, and because she's so close to her own microphone, like, and she's showing, you know what I mean. So for me, all I hear, so you have Jordan at the front, so the microphone's picking him up, so it's quieter. Then I have her right at the very back of my ears, right there. So it's like, I can only imagine what it would have been like in real life. Like, I can understand both sides of the point of view. I can see why she's seeing things the way she is, because she's been discriminated against, and, like, don't agree with that. But at the same time, if you're going to change free speech in terms of, like, trying to say you have to call somebody by a specific thing, or you have to say the specific word, because the pronouns is just the first step. If you know what I mean, it's just that first fucking step, that first little step forwards. It's that point of no return. Once you start changing, well, you have to call somebody this. What's to stop somebody then going on to change something to say, well, now that we've changed that, we're going to say that you can no longer say the word fuck, or you can no longer say the word dick, or, you know, any word. Like, freedom of speech is there for a reason. It protects our fundamental ability to be cognitive and functional human beings. Without that free speech, we are nothing. We are going to be destroyed because of it. Like, our society will crumble because we won't be able to debate. We won't be able to have anything like that, man. It's like, I'm talking too much, I know. I'm sorry, but still. Shit, let's keep going.
You rattle on in your with your ideological speech.
It's not ideological. It's personal. That's what
It's not personal. You haven't said a personal thing.
I'm talking about something that affects my community.
It's just that when you say the things that you say, it tends, even if you didn't mean it to, it attracts people like neo-Nazis and fascists because they see an avenue in what you're saying to do what they want. Even if that's not what you meant, they see an avenue in your in the idea of like a more abscondist form of free speech. They see an avenue in that to continue to spread their hateful ideology and to make more people hateful. So that's why the Nazis come here. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that that's why that was.
I'm perfectly aware of that.
I have a calm, rational question.
Okay.
I won't get emotional with you. Who is this legislation harming? Who is
Harming anybody who wants to use their own words.
So in what capacities? Be specific.
Look, it's important that people are able to use their own words.
Okay.
Because that's how we think. And if
So-
the government starts legislating how we think, and
So
how
if
we
I
speak,
wanted
we're
to
gonna
call
be-
you
Hey,
she,
look, are you gonna let me
if,
finish?
no, I'm playing off of what you're saying. If I wanted to call you she and her and miss, because that's my
care
freedom of
what you call
speech,
me.
and if everyone just called you that all the time, and that was the only thing,
Call me. Can't you tell?
I think that you think.
No, it's right though. You can. Like, in all actuality, I understand where she's coming from, but you can. Like, I could call anybody anything. Yes, I have to pay consequences for that, but you can. Like, I can go up to Jordan Peterson, and be like she or her or it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, whatever pronoun I wanted to use, because, like, yes, it's going against like what trans activists are trying to go through, but. In terms of that, but she's basically saying, I can just come and call you like she. And in that sense, yes, you can, because free speech grants you that ability to think, to say what you think. And that's why places like YouTube are a powerful platform for people with free speech. How the fuck would any of us go, if you've ever watched any debate on YouTube, if you've watched anything to do with any kind of education on YouTube, that's all free speech. Without free speech, we wouldn't be able to have any of this. Like, imagine, like, when I was a kid, man, in, like, the 2000s, like, being able to pick up a fucking microphone and talk on the internet was a dream. It was not even a reality yet. Like, it was ridiculous, but still, man. Either way. Let's keep going.
You don't care because you've never, and that was the only thing.
Call me. Can't you tell?
I think that you don't care because you've never had to face that, and it's a common trend among people who have never had to face like transgender-related discrimination, that you think it's not a big deal because you don't have to deal
I
with
didn't say
it.
I didn't think it was a big deal. I said I didn't care if people called me that.
Access to public institutions, but it does prevent us from accessing healthcare. And it does prevent us from accessing other services.
I'm not arguing about your rights.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. These things about our rights.
Legislation for trans
I'm sorry. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you realize that right now, if you were to kill a trans person, because only for the sole reason that they're trans, that would not be considered a hate crime. Sure, they could be convicted of murder, but not of a hate crime. And that's what this
I don't
bill.
see what
that's
this-
what.
what-
That's what
back
this
in the States, they can use a trans panic.
Like, that I don't agree with. I agree, like, a hate crime should be broadened to be, like, if you hate somebody for their sexuality, for being transgender, for racial, obviously, like, for everything like that. If you're going to, like, if it's going to be a hate crime, it should be a hate crime. So say, if you don't get an interview because you're a person of colour, because of your religion, because of your ethnicity, because of anything else, that's all covered under the law, and so should trans rights in that sense. I totally believe in that. That's totally something that should happen. Though it's not the issue that Jordan is trying to go through. That's free speech. Free speech is free speech, then that issue. Like, it's two separate things, you know what I mean? It's just like, I understand and I agree with the issues, but it's not what Jordan's trying to talk about, if you know what I mean. They're kind of twisting, and that's what the government did. They twisted it. They kind of said, well, we're helping trans, but it's also being like, if we can get free speech changed, then what else can we do? At least that's how I say it, but still.
Almost all of the United States and get off by claiming temporary insanity because they were freaked out by the trans person.
I am not claiming for a moment that people who don't fit into standard and traditional sexual categories or sexual identity categories
This is about
don't
gender,
face
though.
all sorts of trouble. They do. I just don't think that this is the way to fix it. In fact, I think
You do not think that a law that legislates protections from discrimination for trans people
not
is a
this
way
law.
to, you do not think think that.
That's right. I don't think.
Have you read the laws are intentionally worded?
Bring as many.
Most laws involving human
cause
rights.
as much trouble to as many people as possible.
What would we gain? What would we gain from
There is a
that?
conspiracy of intent.
I didn't say it was a conspiracy.
You think there is a concentrated effort behind these bills in order to specifically make the lives of people worse, and that's why we create human rights legislation to make it.
I think that
harder for
people.
to
I
live
think
their
that people
lives.
often do things to make other people's lives worse. Don't you?
Well, clearly, as an example of this rally.
I am probably the most fervent anti-statist you will ever meet. I am an anarchist, and I do not believe that anyone who writes legislation has the interest of anybody but themselves and their special interest groups at heart. So don't come at me saying that I want to suck off the nipple of the government, okay? Because that's not who I am. What I'm interested is in
Okay then. Like, I get that, but you're still living within society's boundaries and rules. You're still living off the fruits of other people's labour. You're still going. I don't know if he's just telling about where Jordan is or whatever, but I mean, if you're living in a society where you are thriving from what society provides, you're not really an anarchist. You know what I mean? An anarchist is somebody who does not give a fuck. Is somebody who is who goes away from society, somebody who doesn't want that, who goes away from society's bounds. And from what I can tell, this person doesn't seem very anarchistic in terms of what he's trying to say. He seems aggressive. But that's not what anarchy is. Anarchy is something completely different. Anarchy is no laws, no society. The fact he's still living in one shows there are places you can go where there's no society anymore. He's at that age where he could literally go there if he really wanted to. There are places outside of the boundaries in America or in Canada, I would imagine too. Even in England, there's places that are starting to be pure out of like their own like little states, if you know what I mean, their own little places where you can go, where you really can be anarchistic if you really want to. Like, it's a real thing. Like, still, but
the nipple of the government, okay? Because that's not who I am. What I'm interested is in that people I love are being assaulted, are being killed, are being discriminated against, are being kicked out onto the street, are freezing to death in the winter because they're being denied shelter. And I feel.
But pronouns are too much to ask for you to show solidarity towards those
Can I just
people.
have a moment?
Sorry.
Look, we agree that this is a thing that's happening. We agree that it's a reprehensible thing that's happening.
Okay, sure. Let's agree on that.
I mean, I don't think that would be controversial to most people. I mean,
agree.
apparently some people think. Apparently to some people we're freaks because we can't have families or whatever. But what okay, whatever. Maybe that's not something you agree with. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth in that regard.
I agree with.
What I fail to understand is how you honestly feel, in your expert opinion, as both an educator, as an educated person, that not calling somebody by a pronoun that has been used to refer to individual people.
Legislating it. It's legislating it as in.
there we go. That's the point he needed to make, man, straight away. He doesn't mind pronouns. He doesn't want it to be legislated. Free speech, straight. There we go.
Necessity that I have an objection to.
Okay, so if there was this legislation was not on the table, if this legislation fails, let's say, if this is removed, you would be totally fine referring to me with they them pronouns.
Probably not they and them.
Probably not they and them. Why is
No.
that?
Well, because I don't think it's a tenable solution.
I don't think it's to what?
I don't think it's a solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. I mean, it's not.
You
Look,
don't think
it's not that
respect.
easy to track. I know that's how you.
You were literally saying you can make up a word and make that a child's name, and you would refer to them by that name. Why is it different for a pronoun?
You yourself.
Well, it's different because it's different. Because
No, it's just as word.
just asked.
It's different because it's a pronoun for a lot of reasons.
So you
I
would
mean, one of the reasons it's different is that pronouns turn out to be very difficult to change. They're a closed linguistic.
Which is why we're
category.
using they them pronouns, which has historical continuity.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
It is in the English language. It's in the Oxford.
Like, I'm not totally 100% agreeing with what Jordan's saying, because I do believe that pronouns should be used, and I know Jordan later on said that he will call somebody by their pronoun if they asked him to, so that's like a whole change I know that happened after this video, so not defending but not agreeing. Like, I would totally just call somebody by their pronoun. I'm not a activist of any sort. I'm just a person who exists. I'm like my sexuality doesn't matter in this issue, as there's nothing about that. I am who I am, and I do YouTube for fun, and I react to videos, and I just give my opinion on stuff, and it's great and stuff. Like Jordan kind of made his point. It's like it's not the fact that he doesn't agree with the pronouns, it's the fact he doesn't agree with the free speech. He's just getting very frustrated with 10 different people talking to him. That's why the video cuts whenever Jordan makes a point. It's kind of annoying, but still.
Which has historical continuity.
Yeah,
it is in the English language. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary.
Years and years and years. It's nothing new.
As an educator, okay, hold. Sorry, yeah.
You were asked, would you refer to me using they, them pronouns? You said, no, I wouldn't. When asked why, you said, because I don't think it's a solution. When I brought up then it was basic respect and so on, what you said was, oh, I wouldn't do it if I was like coerced or whatever you said. Somebody literally just asked, would you do this for me? And you said, no, I would not show you that respect. I would not extend that amount of dignity to you.
That's not what I said.
Yes, you said
You said that you would not use they, them pronouns for a person.
Nobody
Yes, I did
asked.
say that.
Nobody asked anything about if I
Denying
came
them
like
basic
with a club and asked you to like use certain pronouns
makes
to
you
refer
think-
to me.
what makes
but
you
I
think-
just asked, would you refer to me if it wasn't for this law? And I asked you to refer to me with they them pronouns. Would you? And your answer was no.
Not if I was compelled to.
No.
But we're saying if you.
Not if he was compelled to. See, like, I don't know if it's the editing because the video skips, you know what I mean? I don't know what they're cutting out, so I can't really go towards what he said. If you know what I mean, I don't really know specifically what he said about it because it's not one continuous video. It's cutting, so... Well, they could have cut out any number of things he said, so, but, like, I think he confused it with when they asked, will you? I think he meant, would you, if it's legislative. I think that's what he heard. But, in all honesty, like I said, man, I don't agree with not calling somebody by their pronouns to begin with, but still, man.
You said no, and then when I started asking you about, you said it wasn't a solution. When you were asked, what is it not a solution to? You said something vague. We said it's about basic respect, and then you said not if I was compelled to. So no, when you were just asked, as a matter of respect, in fact, would you refer to a trans person who asked you to use they, them pronouns, a pronoun which has a several
Not if I was
hundred-year
compelled to.
historical...
But that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, it is, because
We
it's
just-
legislation.
We're saying if it wasn't legislation.
It's not legislation.
I've got to stop, guys.
Legislation.
Look,
Never mind
there's
the
too many of you.
Okay, one simple
I've had
question.
enough. Sorry, I
Dr.
can't do this
Peterson,
anymore.
one simple question.
No, I'm done.
I thought we were
If it was not
statistically
for the law,
irrelevant.
If it was
Well, yeah,
not
I mean,
for the
like,
law,
I don't
and a
exist.
trans person asked you, would you please refer to me by they and them pronouns? Would you refer to them by those pronouns?
Might depend on how they asked.
So no.
Yeah, exactly. It might depend on how they asked us in. If you walked up to somebody and was like, can you please call me by they or them? You're like, sure. Someone comes to you, I demand you call me by these fucking pronouns. You're like, okay. Like, it's different, you know what I mean? When there's somebody shouting at you and there's a whole group of people shouting at you, it kind of makes you think, like, while I do agree with it, I don't agree with the way they went about doing this, man, because they kind of just ganged up on him in a sense, man, but still.
Authority to determine whether or not there
Why
was
do
a-
I have the
Why
authority
do
to
you have the
determine what I say?
Why do
What
you have,
kind of question
Why do
is
you have
that?
the authority? Let me finish. Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not an individual is worthy of you using their pronouns? Like, if I asked you, would you please use they, them pronouns for me? What?
It would depend on what I
What
thought of your
hoops
motivation.
do you want us to jump through?
Those
What
are my
do-
pronouns. Those are my
There's no
pronouns.
motivation.
No, I know. No one ever has any motivation.
We're
Those are
trying
my
to
pronouns, and I want
survive.
to-
Politics are a product of our lives and us trying to live in this world. We're not trying to live in
that's
this world
partial.
as a product of our
you want me to
politics.
send you
I was
flowers?
apolitical before I came out as trans. I got into politics because I needed to survive, to advocate against people like you, no offense. I have one quick question. Okay, so they, them pronouns are written into the Oxford English Dictionary, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. It's actually the word of the year this year. It does have historical continuity all the way back to Shakespeare. It is objectively an English word, singular they pronouns, grammatically correct. Do you think that you can choose to not respect something that is in the English language as a professor, as an academic,
think that I can
you are
choose
going
to do that?
that you are
Absolutely. I am choosing
but
to
you're
do
wait,
that.
you're ignoring rules of the English language to go out of your way to disrespect students.
That's your opinion, and I'm not going
It is
to
my
opinion.
opinion.
Disrespect students.
We're saying it's disrespectful
Anyway,
to
I'm
our
sorry,
language.
guys.
You don't get to decide what's disrespectful to us.
Okay. Like I said, I don't agree with everything he said in this, like, not everything is 100% agreeable, like, but nothing ever is, it's all our opinions after all. But like I said, he's using his free speech to say what he wants to be like, well, I view it this way, whether you agree with it or not, I have the right to say it. And he doesn't agree with the legislation that was going to be put forward. I don't know whether it did go through or not, but obviously anything that affects free speech is dangerous, as we all know, or we should all know. As for pronouns and transgender people and all of that stuff, it's something else entirely and should be in a completely separate discussion away from politics, in my opinion, until it's put forward as a proper legislation, not as free speech, as hate crimes being put in as proper law, as transgender people going towards that where they want to go. If they want to be called they or them, that's completely fine. If they want to be he or she or whatever they would like to be called, that's completely fine also. But it's also a matter of trying to force somebody's free speech is it's breaking free speech to begin with, you know what I mean? So like there may be times where like I don't even want to be called he, or I don't even want to be called my actual name in real life. Like that's why we go by pseudonyms online, because we have names that we prefer to be called by. That's a whole other issue. It's a whole different thing we could discuss, and it's just one of those things that you have to kind of, it's like this or that, and it's just like, there's like so many different ways you could discuss about it. It's just one of those things that you just either you understand it, you don't, you agree with it, you don't. It's not ever really going to be put into law. I would hope not, at least not in England or America. Maybe I don't know, because I live in a completely different country from Jordan and other people across the other side of the pond, if you will. So I think that's what we'll have to say. Honestly, I can speak way more on this fucking topic, man. I like can put way too much time into so much of this, man. But still, this was awesome seeing, like, you know, the video that made Jordan famous just for everything. I can see why in a lot of his interviews there's a lot of controversy, because you can twist so much of the information in this video, especially with the way this video is edited. As somebody who edits a fuck ton of videos, trust me, like, there's so many jump cuts, it's ridiculous. Either way, have a wonderful day, evening, or night, and I will catch you guys in the very next video. Until then, take it easy.